Hello, and welcome to Healing Gals, the podcast where we reconnect to who we were before society and the world got their hands on us. Over the next 10 episodes, we'll be exploring topics that are important to women: feminism and the patriarchy, boundaries, gender-based violence, self-love, being a single gal, being a mam, shame, and listening to our bodies. And we will talk about all of these things through the lens of growth, learning, and healing. I have lived a life of chaos because I didn't love myself or understand how I was affected by what I now understand to be generational trauma, negative messaging, the patriarchy, and overstimulation. Laughter really is one of the best medicines, and we have a bit of crack along the way. Let me know what resonates with you, whether you've laughed or cried or wanted to shout at your radio. You can send me your thoughts and insights to healinggalspodcast@gmail.com or to healinggals on Instagram. So whether you're out walking or sitting down to listen with a cup of tea, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and remember, you're good enough exactly as you are. Tell me your favourite joke.
My favourite joke is, what does one coffin say to the other coffin? Is that you, coffin? That's the only one I can remember.
I thought you were going to wait for me to say, what does he say? You're a fucking idiot. Hey gals, welcome back. I cannot believe the response to last week's episode, my first episode. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll say it all day. It was such an exciting week. People sharing the podcast on their Instagrams and being so supportive, and women supporting women. Like, I can't tell you how magic that is to me, as somebody who has grown up thinking that women are bitches and women. I think we were given this message that women are in competition with each other, and I internalised that, and I internalised that misogyny. It is called internalised misogyny. I'm so glad that I've healed from that. I'm so glad I have this awareness of how magical and powerful women are when they come together and support each other, and I'm just so grateful. So thanks. Like, do you know when you listen to, I'm just a listener like yous, so when you hear people giving like lengthy thank yous, like, you're like, yeah, get to the thing, but like, I have to say it. Like, I couldn't not say it. I could cry right now. It was amazing. So just know the gratitude coming from my heart to your ears. Thank you. I'm not interviewing my mum on this to be like, oh, here, now I think you should all care about me and my life. I'm not a celebrity. I don't, like, you. Why would you care? For me, in my lifetime, I have had to have so many difficult conversations. I had a 12-year career in social care where I worked with really traumatized children and their families and the network that comes with them, as in social workers, guardian ad litems, guards, solicitors, everything, JLo, the whole lot, all of the people that come with the social care machine. I have had to fight with people for children's rights. I have had to make complaints on behalf of children. I have had to have very difficult conversations with the children themselves. In my first job in social care, I learned the basics of social care. In my second job, I learned how to master the art of a difficult conversation, and I had one manager that was very strong and very, very good at difficult conversations and taught me how to have a difficult conversation. I always had this love in me and passion for what I did and working with young people and advocating for young people. But when I went to that second job in social care, I was taught the craft of having a hard conversation and not taking it personally. And when it wasn't going your way, or when the conversation got difficult, a conversation is just a conversation. So I'm very grateful to my second social care job for teaching me that skill, because it stood to me throughout the rest of my career in social care. It stands to me to this day. So yeah, in bringing my mum on the podcast, I want to model conversations. I want to model how to have difficult conversations with friends, family members, your kids, whatever, because we're not taught that It's not a skill unless you're lucky enough to have been in the presence of somebody that models that for you. Talking about things that are awkward can be really, really tough. So I wanted to bring my mum on to have a difficult conversation with her because she's brave enough to be open about her life experiences, and I have this passion for shining light on subjects that are difficult. So my mum is going to talk about some difficult life experiences that she's had, and we're going to talk about them together. This isn't the first time that we've had these conversations, so it took us a while to get to this, but I want you to know that you can get to this. And when you do, it's really, really enjoyable to just be able to talk about the hard thing without all the bullshit, without the skirting around a topic because that's a bit sensitive or that's a bit whatever. Call a thing a thing. And with our mums, now that I'm a mam, I've learned a lot about my mam and what she must have went through as a... Do you know how triggering the word single parent is for me? I think it's the stigma attached to it. It drives me insane. Because the stigma is on me as a single parent. It's not on the father of the child that abandoned the whole thing and just didn't bother to, take part. So I hate to say single parent, but I recently heard a girl that's like a motivational speaker from Drogheda called Nicola Connolly, I think her name is, and she calls them an independent parent. So I think I'm going to adopt that. Thanks, Nicola. Cheers. So my mum was an independent parent, and she had a really difficult time. And I think as I grew up in my childhood and I was transitioning into adulthood and stuff, I found it really difficult to understand the choices that she made or understand why our life was a certain way or whatever. I really struggled with that. But as I got older and as I learned to heal, there is a lady called Iyanla Vanzant. And if you do anything for yourself, I would follow her and listen to every word that comes out of her mouth. She's literally amazing. And she taught me about learning your mom's story as a woman, not as your mother, but as a woman, because it helps you understand where she was coming from, and it teaches you compassion and gratitude for all that she did, because you understand then that she was only doing the best with the tools that she had at the time. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the discussion with my mum. I hope you get something from it, and if nothing else, ask yourself this: do you know your mum's story as a woman? Do you understand how she came to be here? To me, when I understood my mum's story as a woman, our relationship blossomed because I was able to see it was like before there was a disconnect between me and her, and when I learned her story as a woman, I was able to see why my life is like this and how hard she worked to make it the best that she could with the tools that she had at the time. So enjoy this chat with my mum. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Healing Gal. We're here today with my mum, Gracie the Gal. I think it's really important that we have conversations like this with our mums, and I feel really grateful that my mum is willing to be so open and ready to be a part of my healing journey, and by doing this podcast, hopefully many other people's healing as well. So how are you feeling?
I feel grand.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
No.
Well, someone needs to tell your face that.
I go away.
And your pitch. Do you ever get that when you ask someone a question and they go, no? You know the answer is the opposite of what they just said.
Are you in a lot of pain?
No. Okay, so I gave you a look at the questions beforehand, so you know kind of what we're going to talk about. I feel for you because there's even like when we were getting ready to record and you were saying what's the patriarchy, it wasn't part of your generation's vocabulary. It wasn't like healing and minding yourself and loving loving little you wasn't part of your...
Not at all. No.
So this'll be, some of it'll be new for you, so you don't have to have all the answers. I just think you're great that you're doing it in the first place.
Thanks very much,
Angel. Right, let's go to the first question. Okay, tell me, what was little Grace like?
Um, Little Grace was gorgeous, little blondie, little girl. Um, I came from a huge family, so I was the 16th kid.
Wow.
So by that stage, it was kind of everyone for themselves. So, yeah, healing or loving or that kind of thing really wasn't a thing when we were small.
Yeah.
You know, big gang of kids, not enough of anything really to go around. And
As in what?
as in, I suppose people will tell you even now when you have kids, you know, when you have your first and second baby, it's all, by the time you've 3 or 4, it's, you know, you're not as fussed about things the way you're really with your first and second. You're kind of, you're learning, it's all new to you. But so by the time it was the 16th, it was kind of just like,
Even when you say that, by the time it was the 16th,
yeah.
Jesus.
So the likes of, like, when I look at you as my own kids starting school, it was a huge thing for me, and is going in the gate and your little uniforms and all. Like, I was 4 in April. My birthday's in April the 9th. And when I was 4, I just was told, now you're going to school. So I just went to school with my sisters.
Yeah.
You know, so you just went down, you went into a class and you were in school.
Right.
So you didn't start in September. You started in them days when you were 4.
Oh, go away.
Yeah, so if you were 4 in April, like at Easter, you could start. You could start whenever you were 4, you just went to school.
So there wasn't like, oh, it's nearly September, you're going to be going into junior infants and...
No, it was just like you're going to school. And I suppose the same when I think about it now. At 14, I came in from secondary school, which a lot of my siblings, I think only one of them went to secondary school gay, but a lot of them wouldn't have gone to secondary school. But the same thing, at 14, I came in from school one lunchtime, like that. You come home, eat your lunch and walk back up, because it was a good 20 minutes from the house. And my ma was like, you needn't be rushing that lunch, you're going to work.
Wow.
So it was the same thing. My sister lent me a blouse and a skirt that was miles too big, and a pair of boots miles too big. And I went into town, and I had to go into they used to call them newsagents and tobacconists, and they were like shops now, like Spar, but they wouldn't have sold all that stuff. It was just sweets and chocolate and crisps and cigarettes. And I had to go to them sort of shops and ask, are there any vacancies?
On that day?
On that day, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You just go on now and just go into any shops and ask, are there any vacancies?
Do you know what is interesting to me when you're saying this? Like, obviously, I'm your daughter, so we've had these conversations all through my life. Like, you've told me these stories about being 14 and then just being told you're going to school. But because I didn't have the awareness, I never thought to say to you, what does that feel like when somebody, do you know, like you woke up that morning with all intentions that you were just going to be in school that day.
Yeah.
And then just to come home and for your ma to say to you, you needn't be rushing. The fucking neck of her. You needn't be rushing. You won't be going back to school or going to work. What did you feel? Or did you have time? Like, you had to have felt.
And I suppose I never thought about how I felt about it. But when you think of it, like, it meant then I had to go into town on my own, which I was well used to, because my older sister used to send me into the Marlow cleaners and the New York cleaners with their clothes. So you'd go into town on the bus, which you'd never allow. I would never allow yous into town, never mind the grandkids now. But I was nervous going into town still, and getting a job and having to learn what to do. And, you know, and then I think because the relationship I had with me ma, like, I think she just didn't, I know she'd no time for me growing up as a kid. She just didn't. So I was all the time trying to please her. So I thought, well, going to work and getting money and giving her money, that would, you know, that she'd like me then maybe.
Oh.
And I don't start whinging you.
My poor little angel.
You're going to ruin the thing. But that was what I thought. So I thought, well, if I'm going to work, I'm bringing home money. Maybe she'd see me in a more loving light. But that didn't work out.
Maybe she'll love me.
Yeah.
Or maybe she'll show you love.
Yeah.
Do you think that she loved you?
I don't know, really. Maybe later in life we had a really good relationship for a good part. After I had Tan and Tony, I suppose we because my man and dad broke up, and I was a great supporter then like that because I wanted her to like me, and I did everything for her so she'd like me.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. That time we did have a great relationship, yeah.
And did you feel loved at that time? Did you feel loved at that time, or did you feel like what you're describing to me is a transactional relationship? You know, the attention or the love that she's giving you is based on what you're doing for her.
Yeah.
So did you feel at that time, did you feel loved by her at that time, or did you feel it's still transactional but I enjoy it because it's my mum and this is what I wanted the attention and the love from her?
Yeah, I suppose I did. Yeah, I enjoyed the relationship I had with her, and I was glad then that we used to get on, and because up until after I had Tony, I think she just didn't really have a whole lot of time for me. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I suppose she was just all played out with having kids and stuff. But
yeah, she had been pregnant her entire adult life. What age was she when she had her first child?
I think she was around 19 or 20. I'm not quite sure.
Sure. And that was with our granda Cecil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were they married before they had their first child?
I think they were. Now, they could have been pregnant before they had their first child. I don't know, to be honest with you. But yeah, and then she went on to have like 20 children with him.
Wow. Because
she lost a set of twins and she lost a baby, but then she took Ceci after Lil's husband died. So, but my ma had 20 children with me dad, and me and John were the youngest of that 20. Then Ceci came in after Lil's husband died, and my ma reared him as our brother.
Wow. So Lil is obviously I know, but Lil is your sister and Ceci was your nephew, but then Lil's husband died and your mum took Ceci in as her son then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wowzers. And that had a whole load of can of worms by itself, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in all of that, with your mum being pregnant for her entire adult life, I know from us having conversations, she was quite an angry woman, and I think justifiably so, because she was pregnant so much of her life. Her body never got to recover from any of the pregnancies. You know yourself, when you have one baby now, you need months to recover on maternity leave, and you deserve all that care and everything, and she didn't get any of that. So can you tell us a bit about what it was like to have a mum that was very angry all the time and constantly pregnant?
Well, she wouldn't have been constantly pregnant when I was small, because John was the last pregnancy after me.
Oh, that's right.
So I was the second last.
Okay.
You know, so I remember me ma I don't remember being pregnant. We'd never even said those words when we were kids.
So you wouldn't have said the word being pregnant?
No, you never said pregnant, or you would never pass remark that anybody was pregnant or was expectant. They'd say she's expectant. Wow. So that was expecting a baby. But you never knew how the baby got there, or there was never any talk of that. But yeah, I suppose, like, I remember her coming home. I remember going to the hospital. She was in the Mount Carmel. It was a private nursing home, and she had John because she was 43. So I remember going to the hospital with my eldest brother, Paddy, and Ceci. So we would have been the two youngest, and then my dad went in, and now my ma came with this little baby, and that was John. But yeah, I remember looking at his little feet sticking out from the blanket, and I was like, oh my God. And like that in them days, my ma just got in the back of the car with us, with the baby in her arms, and so I don't remember. But I don't remember being pregnant, but I remember she was always probably in bad form. And I know when I went for it, I have been to counselling throughout the years for a lot of different issues, but I remember talking to, the way I'm talking to you now, I went for this hypnotherapy, and It was very expensive, but it was very good. But I remember talking to the guy that was doing the therapist, and like I was talking about things that happened with me ma when I was growing up, and he said to me, "You're so matter of fact about it," and I said, "Well, that's the way it was, you know." So he was kind of blown away by it, and about the life that I'd had and stuff, and I was just telling him like I'm talking to you. And then he said to me, "Well, do you know," and it always stuck with me, he said, "Well, when you know better, you do better."
Yeah.
And he said, "The only thing I can say is," he said he was sorry that he reacted the way he did about me ma, but he said, he said it was just the way you were so matter of fact about her, but he said she didn't have the tools you have now, then.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have had, like we were talking earlier about the patriarchal society. I didn't know what it was, and that's why I was asking you. But in them days, women were very much, you stayed at home, you minded the kids, and you got what you got, so she was all the time, my dad was a drinker, and I would have never said he was an alcoholic, but he drank every day, and he came home every day and fell asleep. We used to have to try and rub the money out of his top pocket with a pin. But that was the whole thing. Like that, I'd do that to please her.
Yeah.
Because if I got the money out with the pin, then when she got the money, and for that few minutes, you were the best things in sliced bread. But so I suppose I didn't realise then that my dad was an alcoholic, but it's just that he drank every day. But then that was, she was at home, he was coming home drunk every day. He drove a taxi. All his brothers all were very well to do, and she was very bitter about that, because they did have a house in Beaumont, and it was a big 4-bed house, and it was seemingly lovely, and my dad was away at sea and never paid the mortgage, and they lost the house.
Okay.
So all his brothers then all had lovely houses around Beaumont and Santry, and they all drove taxis. So there was money to be earned, but my dad kind of just went to the pub and didn't, And she hated that she had to live in Finglas. She always felt that was beneath her,
Wow.
And I think Finglas is a great place,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel when we were young, like as I got I didn't have an awareness that there was anything wrong with Finglas, when we were younger. So when we went anywhere and you'd say, "Where are you from?" We'd say Finglas, like, and they'd be like, "Oh right," that high pitched thing again. Really, Finglas must be lovely, and it was lovely, Like my memories of living in Finglas down in Rathvilly are of just Rita. That was a couple of doors that way, and Jeanette Cheney, and they would just send you over to the van over across across Valley Park to, what was that shop over there?
Oh yeah,
Johnny Max. No, that was up in Rattled Avenue. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the shop over there, but they just send you over, and I always just felt like there was just a community, people around you that had their eye on you and looked out for you, and so when people would say, "Oh, Finglas, right," you'd be like, Finglas, like, what's the problem, so that must have been really hard then for my granny, for her to be living in an area that she didn't want to live in, to be pregnant 20 odd whatever times, the amount of times she was pregnant. She was living with an alcoholic husband that was spending the wages while there was 18 kids to care for and a couple of kids that were after dying. So no wonder she was so angry,
Yeah.
But what I'd like to know, and in the healing work that I've done on myself and stuff that I've learned along the way, is when things like that happen to you, the thing happens to you, but to me the most important thing to consider is, what did you tell yourself about yourself when it happened? Because that's where the hurt happened. So if you're living in poverty, or your ma's not nice to you, whatever the thing is, what did you tell yourself about yourself when you experienced that? Do you think that you are aware of what you told yourself?
I don't think I could honestly say to you what I told myself, but it was how I felt about myself,
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So I think, you know, when you just feel unloved and you don't feel worthy and you don't feel cared for, you know, stop looking at me. And so you try and do things for to make people like you, and then like that, like you be funny and you do things to make people laugh, and you know, you just deal with it in the best way you can. And as I've got older and I know more and I know better, I do better. I did make mistakes, as you well know, with my own kids. I know Natanya talks about when Simply Red went on, everyone had to run because she was in one of our cleaning humours. And that's what I did when I'd get into like that. I'd be stressed. But I think over the years, and especially I'm blessed now that I can with my grandkids be a much better grandparent, and not make up for me mistakes, but you know that you're more there for them, and like they can do no wrong basically in my eyes, all of them. I think they're great kids, you know. But and I'm very proud of them.
You were saying that you felt you're not aware of what you told yourself, but you're aware of how it made you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
And you felt that you were unloved and unworthy and unwanted. And what does that then translate into in your life? How does those feelings show up in your life then as adult Gracie?
I suppose that's how I ended up in the situation I was in. When I was very young, probably only 16, I had an affair with a married man. Because he was the first one, I think, in my life to show me love, what I thought was love.
How old were you then?
I was 16, he was 33.
Wow.
And yeah, and that was the first time that I felt loved. And then I had Natanya.
With the married man?
Yeah.
Right.
And for him, and he already had 6 kids. As you can see, I have a fucking wonderful life.
Well, can we talk about that? Because I think one of my favourite memories, like I love a good chat. I hate small talk, you know.
Yeah.
So I think you're very aware of this about me. So I remember during COVID and you moved in with me and Brooke.
Yeah.
And we had loads of really special time together during COVID, and we talked a lot about years ago and particularly things around shame. I'm really interested in the shame that people carry, and I was really sad to hear when we spoke about that, and you spoke about how you carried shame about being so young with a married man, and the fact that, you know, he was married and you were something on the side, and you know all the messiness that comes with that. And I felt, I don't know, I think you did feel this too, but I felt a really huge part of that conversation was highlighting to you, ma'am, look where you're after coming from, you know, and this is the thing, this is the importance of podcasts like this and conversations like this, because shame dies when stories are told in a safe place.
Yeah.
And when you said to me that you felt ashamed that you ended up 16 seeing a married man and having a child for him then a couple of years down the line, and I said to you, what else did you think was going to happen? You know, you were a little girl growing up in a house that didn't receive love. And not just, sometimes like you see kids and, you know, there's parents and they might spend too much time on their phone, but by and large they meet the child's needs, you know, all the kind of the way the world has gone. But like in your house, I would class that as just abuse, like to not give kids love like that. And I do have compassion for Gay, because she was doing the best as she could. I couldn't imagine having that life. I'd rather die. It wouldn't be for me, you know. So I'm not judging her, but I feel for you that you grew up with so starved of love. So when she sent you out into the world, and then here's an older man can see, you may as well have a neon sign over your head, I'm vulnerable and I will do anything for love.
Yeah.
And he saw that and took advantage of that. you would be insane not to grab onto love from someone, from anyone, with both hands. So I hope that since we had those chats and stuff during COVID, like, I hope that you see that too, that little Grace was just doing her best to meet her needs,
Yeah.
and they are the most fundamental needs that we have, is like food, warmth, shelter, love,
Yeah.
we need them to survive and thrive.
Yeah.
So tell me, from all of that, ma'am, what generational trauma has been passed on to you that you're aware of? So some examples might be teenage pregnancy, getting into relationships with inappropriate partners, tolerating bad behavior from inappropriate partners, addiction, all of that, maybe eating disorders, all that kind of stuff. So there's a huge list of them, but is there any that you're aware of that have been passed down to you that you're becoming aware that's because of, I was given that by my mum, I didn't choose that?
Well, I would never have really thought of it like that it was given by my mum or my dad. Well, I didn't. I'm not going to say mum and dad because it was me mum and dad.
Yeah.
But because I feel strange saying mum and dad.
I feel strange ever saying dad.
Yeah, I understand. Well, sorry about that.
What's that?
Wait, I tell you. But no, I don't feel it was given to me by them. I suppose it's in our family, and I've spoken to yous and to me nephews and nieces about it, that we do come from a family of addiction. We didn't realise it at the time, but we do.
Yeah.
And we are of that sort of personality. So yeah, that is something that's passed down through generations. And I suppose the other thing too is, like, when I look at yous, I hope that that yous felt loved growing up and supported, and like I just don't think I had the tools for the world. Like, and I hear people going to doing their leaving cert and doing their junior cert and going to their debs, and I suppose there was a huge, like, from the time I was 17 when I was pregnant, and don't get me wrong, when I had Natanya, I had somebody that loved me unconditionally and I loved her, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I felt that huge bond with somebody,
Wow.
And I think that the love that you have for your kids, you get that from your kids,
Well,
so
you did.
I did, because it was
Yeah.
the first time that I'd ever kind of experienced that somebody that just loved me, and it is very sad when you think about it. I've gone to counselling and I've dealt with it a lot, and like, for the life that I had, I think I reared 4 kids on my own from Finglas, and if you think of what we were called then, unmarried mothers, from Finglas, you'd think there's that sort of a stigma about it, but yous all did really well, thank God, and yous all are doing really well, and I'm very blessed. But it just shows you it doesn't have to be that way, because that's the stigma, that's where you're from. Oh, your ma wasn't married, you don't have the same dad, and it is a stigma, and it's not something that I'd be proud over, but I'm not ashamed of it now. I don't feel shame of it. I did see the first Natanya's dad recently in the shopping centre with his wife. Yeah. Yeah.
Gals, this is a scoop now, because she hasn't fucking told me this. Go on, fill us in there, Grania. What? Where did you see him? What was he wearing? Is he old as fuck? Tell us all.
Well, I'm 59, so he'd be
105.
No, he's 17 years older than me, so he'd be 76.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and he's still with his wife, and I do feel really bad. I did feel like when I saw him, I just didn't know what to do. And
where did you see him?
I was walking I was at work, and I had one of the ladies out from work going into the Blanchardstown Centre, and he was walking in there with his wife.
Oh my God. Did he see you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did.
And was there like a look of acknowledgement? Was there, oh, fuck, what, like...
There was a look of acknowledgement, and I got an awful fright when I saw him. And I felt really bad for his wife, and I felt I would have loved just go over and say to her, look, I'm so sorry for what I did. What I did was unforgivable. Like, she was a young mother with a crowd of small kids. Like, what was I thinking? Like, seriously.
Can I tell you what you were thinking? Because it actually just breaks me. It just, even to hear you saying that you feel bad and that what were you thinking? She was a young woman with kids. You were a traumatised child. 16, ma'am. Like, Brooke is 15.
Yeah.
Would you hold her accountable when, let's imagine Brooke in her 50s. Would you hold her accountable for any decision that she makes right now?
No.
Her brain isn't fully formed. She hasn't matured as an adult. She hasn't experienced the world. She doesn't know the dynamics of relationships. She doesn't know the responsibilities that you have as a wife or as a husband, or, you know, we as 16-year-old girls, we don't know any of that. We're not making a decision there with all the facts. So I'm just going to take that shame off you there now. And that guilt that you're describing, that's not your guilt to carry. That woman looks at him and has to think, you're a fucking idiot. She was a young one. And you knew she was just dying for someone to love her. And if she doesn't know that, God help her, because she doesn't have the awareness that she should as a woman. Think about when you look at young ones now, Brooke's age. Do you hold any judgment on any of them?
No.
Even if you saw a young one, Brooke's age, or 15, 16, whatever, and she's smoking and swigging out of a vodka bottle on the corner of the road, what would you think?
Well, I'd just say, oh, God help her.
Exactly,
Why
man.
is she out doing that?
Why is she doing that? Is she okay? Well, will I pull in and go in and check, is she okay?
Yeah.
You know? So let that go, man. If you can, my angel. You just deserve that, you know?
Yeah.
That woman, as a woman, knew better than you then, you know? You're holding yourself to a standard that's just not necessary and is unfair to little Gracie there, you know?
Yeah.
She didn't know. How would she know? All she knew was her ma's after sending her out into the world of work, and this man in his 30s, he was in his 30s.
He was 33.
He was 33 and you were 16. And you, starved of love, dying for someone, just like you didn't even have an attachment with anybody. Your first attachment was with Tan, your firstborn, when you were 17.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't believe that that's your shame to carry, if that helps you, or if you can just put that down, you know, because it's not yours, you know.
Yeah.
That's really interesting though to me. So he looked at you, and then did he just look away and they went on? Did the wife see you?
Yeah, they both saw me.
Okay.
So
Did they recognise you?
absolutely. And
Still a stunner, am I right?
absolutely. No, so then I went in and did what I was doing at the shopping centre, and then I went into the health food shop, and I was getting stuff in there, and he came in on his own.
Oh.
And I just looked at him, and he looked at me, and he just said, Grace, and I just looked away, and I was like, no, you don't get to talk to me.
My jaw is on the... When did this happen?
A few months ago.
A few months ago. And you're only spilling the tea now.
It didn't come up. Like. It's hard to get
Do
to see it.
you know what else won't be coming up? He's in his 70s.
Scarlet for him.
Oh my God, my angel. Oh my God. What a throwback. Well, you're doing great, gal. Fair play to you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, that's now after just shocking me. We've covered this a little bit, right? But the reason that I set up Healing Gals is because I want there to be... I don't see the whole women's circle thing and all. See Australia and all them places. There's women healing and coming together and talking about difficult things just isn't happening the way it should be in our country, you know?
Yeah.
It is happening. There are a couple around the country and around the place, but not enough. And there's none out kind of East Meath and Drogheda direction. So I wanted to bring this here for us because I can. So This program that I've designed, that I'm bringing to the women's circle and that I'm going to be speaking about a lot on this podcast, is the 4 horsemen of healing, right? So, or rather, the 4 horsemen that block you from healing. So, the first one was generational trauma, which we spoke about, right? The second one that I want to ask you about is negative messaging. So, as we move through the world, like you were born in 1964, so you grew up in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s, whatever, right? And you have seen poverty, you've seen abuse, you've seen society and how society has treated women. And you in particular. And I call that negative messaging that we receive from our family, from our upbringing, from what you see on the telly, from what you see on your phone, from schooling, whatever. That's negative messaging. And particularly you as a woman who's in her late 50s, you have been through that whole diet culture. Like, what messaging did you receive about your value, your worth, yourself growing up?
Well, I suppose that it's age old, you know, people losing weight, and I've done everything.
Have you?
I remember joining Slimming World. I was 10 stone 2, and I thought, oh my God, I can't be 10 stone 2. I remember my friend years ago taking a photograph of me, and she still has the photograph, and I'm in a size 10 pair of Wrangler jeans, and I thought I was huge, because I always had a big bum and big thighs, but I never had any confidence in myself. I never felt that I was lovely. I never felt that I was deserving of somebody to look at me and think that I was, like, I meet people now and say, I remember you and your lovely blonde hair and your lovely figure, and I was like, I don't remember any of that. And now,
and they'll say it to you now.
Yeah.
But were they saying it to you then?
No, because in that time, Molly, you have to remember, people, like now I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I look great today, or I feel like if somebody says to me, like, going to work, you look real fresh, your hair is low, I say, yeah, thanks very much, I feel good. Or I meet people and say, God, you're looking great, and I say, yeah, I feel very good, thanks. Where before I'd be like, stop, or like, you didn't say thanks. You weren't meant to take compliments, and if you did, you were stuck up, or you were, you know, the saying used to be years ago, oh, she's full of herself, that one.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody went out and they were in a kind of a fancy dress, or like it was all dressed up, or they were saying, see her, she's full of herself, you know. So, and now I don't. I think, you know, whenever I see anybody, I say, your hair looks, you know, if I see, I don't mean I go out and I say to everybody, your hair is lovely. But even before I moved into this estate, there's a girl, and I know her well now, but I remember she was walking over here one day and she had beautiful red hair. And
Was it me?
No, it wasn't you. But she lives in this estate.
Was it your young one?
But I remember saying to her, God, your hair is beautiful. And she was very taken aback. She's like, oh God, thanks. And I was like, no, it's got the sun on it now and all. I said, you look really well. And I think in those days you didn't. You were seen as being full of yourself if you thought, or you did anything different with yourself, or you put yourself out there. Where now I see yous, my own kids, and you see girls and lads, you know, getting their hair done and doing all of that. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's the way it should be. But I think years ago that was seen as a negative thing. You're full of yourself. You're up your own arse.
Yeah.
You
If she was a bar of chocolate, she'd eat herself.
Yeah.
Can I ask you though? Years ago, see exactly what you just described there. Was it the same for men? Or if somebody commented on Uncle Clive's Wrangler jeans and told him that he looked slick, I'm pretty sure he'd do a little dance and everyone would laugh and say what a great fella he is.
Yeah. I don't know, Molly. I can't say that for sure, but I think...
When I think about like our childhood and being around like Clive or Ray or Claire or whatever, they were very snappy dressers, you
Yeah,
know. They were
yeah.
very confident and would tell you they're gorgeous,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And then I'd look at you and Susie and Wheeze and stuff, and I don't feel the same vibe from yous, you know.
Yeah.
Three gorgeous, competent, beautiful women. That wasn't nurtured in yous, but I think it was nurtured in the lads.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the patriarchal society that we lived in, and how much more valued men are than women. Or men were than women.
Yeah.
I think it's still the case now. We still live in a patriarchal society, but I think with podcasts like this and conversations and the initiatives to make sure that we see more women in government and more women on the telly, and make sure that there's more of a gender balance and everything, I think it's changing, and I think definitely the culture around complimenting women and women being able to take compliments and love themselves and be able to say out loud how much they love themselves, I think that's slowly changing.
Well, I'll tell you this, you'll find this interesting, that my grandmother had 11 boys and 7 girls, the very same as my own mother. She'd 18 children as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Your ma's ma?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Her name, Margaret.
Margaret. Okay.
So she had 11 boys and 7 girls, right?
Yeah.
So this is, you're talking about generational. So when her boys, when the boys and the girls were growing up, the girls were sent to work and the boys were sent to further education.
Wow.
And that was the way it was in that time.
Yeah.
And the same in our house.
Sorry for interrupting you, ma'am. What years are we talking there? Is that the 20s? Gay was born in 27, wasn't she?
26.
26.
Yeah.
So is that the 20s and 30s?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So my ma's brothers would have been all sent to probably secondary school.
Right.
I don't know if they went to college, but I know a lot of them went to secondary school, played GAA, were very much into all of that, as was my grandfather. And the books in there that we have about them, they're very interesting, so much history in them. But it just shows how the generations went. So the girls were sent to work. Like my ma was only 12 or 13, and some neighbour, his wife died, and he was left with small kids. So my ma was sent to that house to look after them kids.
Oh, God.
You know.
Are you, like, straight away, I'm just like, that's a recipe for disaster. Was she okay in that house?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. And I think she would have told me, but she said the man was really nice and she was really lucky. But
okay, thank God.
yeah, but that was the way it was. And then my Auntie Grace, who was she was a lovely lady. I remember her telling me, I used to go and visit her when she lived down in Blessington, and I remember her telling me they had a lodger in their house, so in the family home, which was only a 3-bed house down in Marino, that's where they were reared. They had a lodger in to get money for the household, and eventually your man that was there was much older than my Auntie Grace, but then my Auntie Grace ended up, she married him.
Okay.
And she said to me, like, the night that they were going to wherever they were going to live, then they were going to rent a room in another house or something. And that's what you did in them days. And
so your Auntie Grace married the lodger?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was a good few years older than her. And she told me, she said, like, when we went into the room, she foolishly said to him, "Where are you going to sleep?"
Oh, my God.
And he said, "I'm going to sleep in there with you."
And how old was she?
I don't know, she was probably about 17 or 18.
And he was in his...
He was older, probably. He was in his 20s, you know.
Right.
So, but that'll tell you, there was no talk. And then the same thing happened with my ma. You know, my ma idolised the boys, like Clive, Paddy, Ray, John, Ceci, Claire. She wasn't all that enamoured with Barney and Clem. Tony, Tom. She idolised her boys, you know, and would go above and beyond for them, you know. So
do you think that the boys felt loved by Gay?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say that the rest of my family didn't feel the way I felt the way I felt.
Stop.
Yeah, she just didn't have time for me as a kid, as a whatever. But
what about the other girls? I know that she just love most of the boys, but she didn't have time for the girls.
Yeah, I think she'd more time for the boys.
Was there any of the girls that she had time for?
Gay, and still, like, Gay would have been.
Gay would have been Gay's favourite.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that because she was her namesake? Do you think?
I don't know if that's it. Like, Wiz would have been very good for her. But the whole generational thing is, that's the way she was reared, in a house where the boys were well looked after. In turn, she had a big gang of kids.
Yeah.
The boys were always well looked after. The boys could they ruled the roost, basically.
Wow.
And then, so now I have 3 girls and 1 boy. Yeah. And I just love them all the very same. I wouldn't do anything.
Lies after lies after lies.
I would never do anything more for Tony than I would for me 3 girls.
She continues to tell lies into this microphone. Can you believe it? Pull up the family WhatsApp group. Pull up the WhatsApp group.
Are you ruining it now?
No, we all know I'm the favourite. Go on. But can you tell me, ma'am, right? Your mum's mum had 18 kids, 11 boys and 7 girls. Your ma then had 18 kids, 11 boys and 7 girls. How did you end up not doing that?
Well, Molly, I've learned over the years what you put out into the universe you get. And I was doing that before I even knew I was doing it.
Right.
So when I was young, I used to say, I'm going to have 4 kids. I'm going to have them all by the time I'm 25.
Did you?
Yeah.
You wanted to have them before you were 25?
Because I thought 25 would have been really old for to be having kids. And I didn't want to be like me ma, having kids when you're old. So whatever it was in my head, I used to always say that when I was younger. I'm going to have 4 kids and I'm going to have them all before I'm 25. Right. And I had you and Gemma when I was 25, and then I got sterilised.
Wow. I think that's a terrible word. I think that I got sterilised is just like so, like an animal or something. You got your tubes tied, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go with that, will we?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what they called it when I got it done. I went in to get sterilised.
Wow.
They couldn't wake me for 3 days.
That's because you were bollocks. 4 kids and you're only 25. I'd rather die. Oh my God. Okay, so I asked you, how did you end up not doing exactly the same thing that your man did? And you said that you were manifesting from when you were small, but you didn't even know what manifesting was. Yeah. After the twins, then you said, I'm not going to continue and do what my ma did. I'm going to get my tubes tied now and just be able to focus on the 4 kids that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, so I would have loved to go back, and I always wanted to be a teacher. That would have that would have been my choice.
Right.
And I was very good at it because I used to be always minded the class in school and all. But anyway,
you would have been a really good teacher, man.
Yeah. And so eventually, anyway, I got a place in college now, but I had nobody to mind us.
Stop.
So
you got a place in college to be a teacher?
I got a place for to go and do me teaching. But I had nobody to mind us, and as well I had to work. So I couldn't go to college and pay someone to mind us while I wasn't working. So I had to go to work. And
you had to sacrifice your college to be a teacher? Yeah. Oh, my angel.
Oh, I know. No, but then I did eventually.
Well, thanks for making that sacrifice, because I know now as a mom, you know, the things that you sacrifice, you're hoping, you know at the time, this is the right decision. My body's telling me this is the right decision. Logistically, I'm not going to be able to afford to pay someone to mind these kids and not be working and going to college and all. So I'm going to have to sacrifice my dream, you know.
Yeah.
But that meant that you were there to raise us, you know.
Yeah.
So thanks for making that sacrifice for us. And I'm sorry that you had to sacrifice that. No, well, I don't feel guilt about it or anything. Sure, I was only a kid, but I am sorry for you that you didn't get to do that, you know.
But another thing I used to say all the time too, Molly, when I was a kid, we call it the Bold Boys School up in the top of Finglas, and I used to always say, someday I'm going to work in there with them kids.
Did you?
Yeah, someday I'm going to work with them. And I remember I used to, when you were small, and I'd be making up stories. I always told you stories about me going out and finding these little kids that had nobody and bringing them home and minding them and doing all that. And it was always something in me, it was in me psyche somewhere that I was going to do it. And then, like that, I got the job up in the detention centre, and I did a degree within that detention centre. So, like, it all worked out in the end,
comes around,
you know. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved up there as well. So, yeah. So then, as I got older, then as I keep saying to you, when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely.
And then you start doing courses about, you know, personal development and learning about yourself and learning how to love yourself and learning how to be kind to yourself and not be so hard on yourself all the time. And
self-compassion. I think it's like one of the number one things that will get you right in your head, in yourself, is if you can have compassion for your little self, like what we talked about for little Gracie. Like, she isn't some home wrecking hoe.
yeah,
There's some hoes in this house. There's some hoes in this house. She's not some little home wrecker. She was just a little girl looking for someone to love her, you know?
Yeah.
And when you see that and you have self-compassion, that's when things changed for me. The things that I felt shame about, or that I felt I was carrying around guilt for, you know, when someone reminds you of something and you cringe, you're just like, how did I do, you know? But when I learned self-compassion, and like what you said earlier on, you didn't have the right tools then. And I always say, you were doing the best that you could with the tools that you had at the time. And that just lifts that shame off you. And when you lift the shame off, then you can actually start pouring love into yourself. Because the shame is a blocker, you know. And if you're carrying shame or guilt, that's blocking you from being able to give love to yourself, to receive love from anybody else. Because when you're carrying shame, the message that you're telling yourself is, I'm inherently not worthy. So I can't accept that. But yeah, I like that, what you're saying there about personal development. And so you ended up working in Finglas Child and Adolescent Centre for 10 years with the ball boys. All them ball boys who were, why were they in the detention centre? It was a remand and assessment unit, wasn't it?
Well, there was two parts of it. One part was detention, where they'd do a sentence, and the other part was the assessment and remand unit. So that's where I worked.
Right.
So lads would come in for a 3-week assessment, and you do...
Where would they come from?
Well, they'd come from all over Ireland.
Like what was the reason they were there?
Initially it was all a lot was non-school attenders, and then as drugs became more prevalent in the towns all across Ireland, and particularly in the inner city, you had a lot of kids coming in with that sort of background, you know, robbing cars, running for people, you know. A whole different, loads of different reasons for
criminal charges. What was believed to be criminal charges then. Now we have a different system. We have a JLO system where they get warning after warning after warning, and that's another podcast. That's another day to talk about that. So you, at the start, when you started working in Finglas, you were working with teenage boys that were not going to school. They were sent there. They were sent to you because they were not going to school. That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, they'd be sent because they'd be non-school attenders. So then they'd be hanging around, getting into trouble, robbing in shops.
Okay.
You know, there was one lad from somewhere in the arsehole of somewhere in the country, and he actually threw an apple at a guard on a bike. That was, but in that little town in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, that was seen as a huge crime.
A big boo-boo.
A big thing, you know. And we got low, but I have to tell you, they were great. You know, and I had great times there, great fun, great learning. Absolutely great learning. I learned so much working there, you know. I loved it. And then I was in a step down unit then for people about to leave care, you know, so, and I loved that as well.
I think I always I think as I was growing up, and when I was growing up, you were waitressing and working in Trecom, and what else do I remember? In the school, you're working in the school. You're a classroom assistant in the school, right, on a CE scheme. And the different jobs that you did, and then when you started working in Finglas Child and Adolescent Centre, and you'd be coming home telling me these stories of young fellas that you were working with, and funny, this young fella, and he jumped over the wall and he fell, or you know, you'd have or you brought them out in the van and one of them started legging it and you said, you better keep running, or there'd be some funny story that you'd come, and I always thought I think I'd be good at that. Like, that sounds like a bit of crack, you know. But I think my affinity for healing and helping and like sharing knowledge, I think comes from you, because whenever you used to work in that job and you'd come home and tell me these things, and you'd tell me stories about kids that didn't have good personal hygiene or weren't aware of it, or the mad come and she didn't have enough for the butt or something, and you'd in the stories you'd say, so how you wouldn't leave her like that, so I gave her a this and I gave her a that, and I went up to the manager and said, we're not leaving that woman like this, we're getting this for her. And I always saw in you that you had such a passion for helping people and supporting people, and you had so much compassion for people, and I think that's where I get this from, And earlier in this episode when we were chatting, you were saying, that you hope that you talked a little bit about how you're a great granny now, and that you made mistakes as a mum, but you were a great mum, you are a great mum. I'm going to start crying. But I want you to be able to see that you're a great mum, and that you, like, I see you and I can see where you've come from and the things that you've changed to give us a better life, And nobody's childhood is perfect, and we've definitely had our struggles and the things that we've had to overcome, but you did miles better than Gay, and I'm trying to do miles better than you, and I hope that Brooke does miles better than me, and all of the heartache and all of the stuff that happened to Gay, and that then Gay pushed on into her kids. I hope that between me and you and Brooke and Tony and Tan and Gemma, that we can have some sort of healing, so that Sive and Ava and Brooke and the younger ones come up healthier and with better ability to have great relationships with each other, I think one of the things that I've only learned recently, I always just kind of, siblings fall in and fall out with each other. And I always felt kind of jealous of other families that they didn't see. Like me and Gemma, my twin, like we would go without talking for a year or two. There'd be some sort of row, and then we wouldn't talk for a couple of years or whatever. And it's only recently, in doing all this work for Healing Gals, and the women's circles and the stuff that I'm reading and the content that I'm consuming, and the reflection that I'm doing, is I'm realising that doesn't need to be like that. I don't need to keep going years without talking to Gemma because we have a falling out, Gemma has a different brain than me, but that's not a bad brain, just not the same as mine. And if we don't agree with each other, I think it's a generational thing, that it's been passed on to us, that because yous all have more, your siblings, yous can go years without talking to each other, but I think Gay didn't teach yous because she couldn't have, she didn't know how to have healthy conflict and to resolve things and just accept that maybe that's just not her point of view.
And I think, Molly, all down through the years, and you probably remember this, I used to always say to you, because I was a single parent, which is, I would always say, like, always mind each other. If anything happens to me, it's only ever going to have each other, you know. And I know in my own family, like, you'd fall out and fall in with them and whatever. But I think I'm at the stage in my life now where I just stop. It's not that I'm not talking to them. I don't have room for that in my life anymore. And it is, like, in our family, like, my ma didn't talk to me for years before she died over something which was awful.
That wasn't even real.
Yeah. Which is wrong. And I never wanted that for me and my kids. I never, ever, that was something I always gave me anxiety, that if I didn't see us or I wasn't in touch with us, or, that I didn't see the kids, or, and that to me is so important, because when my ma wasn't talking to me, it meant she wasn't talking to you, and that's the way my ma was. So I felt really strongly about that would never happen with me and my kids. And you and Gemma not talking, or when you and Tan fell out or whatever, that would really hurt me. It would really upset me. And I just always, I got to the stage where I say, it's between you that is, I'm not getting involved. You are grown adults now. But yeah, I have a photograph of the three girls on my phone. And
me, Tan and Gemma.
yeah, you, Tan and Gemma, on my phone as my screensaver. And I said, I'm going to see that every day, and eventually that's going to manifest itself, because that will make... And there, we were here the other day, Gemma was celebrating, going for her scan, getting great results, that the baby's healthy and all of that. Woo-hoo! And it was lovely. And this is going to be my 10th grandchild. And then you were, after the very same day, putting a deposit on your house, which is so exciting. So we came back here, and you and Natanya came round, and you were minding Blake, which was just gave me so much joy. And because when like that, because you weren't talking, you weren't getting to see Blake. Brooke can go down there, but then it was
not
getting
the same.
You know, it's not the same. So that just for me is what's very important to me. It's very important to me, where I think my ma's generation was, oh, don't mind her, she's always like that, or you know, and she wouldn't encourage you for to sort
Repair.
These things out, you know, sort it out, know better, do better. And like that was the way she was then. This is the way I am now. And as you said, it'll be different for you too, and Brooke will learn from you. And you know, like, for you to be here the other day together, having your lunch together, the three is, and like that, if Tony and Doyler was here as well, it'd be great. But that just we're able to be here the other day together, and both of you were... Gem's due the baby in May, and your house going to be ready in May, which is uncanny. But like that just makes, for me, that's huge. For me, that I see you, is that we've our relationship that we have. Like, I couldn't bear if I couldn't see you. I couldn't bear it. It would consume me. You know. But it's changed. And it does change. And as you learn, and you know, I was in town the other day with work, and I seen like loads of girls now walking along on their phones, little toddlers holding onto a pram, and they just look lost. And I was like, where's their ma to, you know, show them the way. You know, somebody has to show you the way. You know, and you could...
What's your point about the girls, that they're not tuned in because they're on their phones, or what?
Well, number one, that's me pet hate, especially because the way I work with people with intellectual and disabilities, and intellectual and physical disabilities. So a lot of them most of them are in wheelchairs, and I don't know, many times in town people are walking along on their phones and just walk straight into the wheelchair, like nearly falling them. Like, it's awful. Like the other day on a bus, a woman got on, she 2 bags of shopping, a backpack, and she turned around and she nearly whacked. Only I put my hand up, like the lady I had in the wheelchair. Like, people are just not aware. They're going around with their things in. That's another podcast anyway. But number one is the phone. But you see people, and you know the kids are not minded, and she's not minding herself. So where's she learning? Like, where's the learning for her? Who's going to guide her? Who's going to say to her, no, don't do that? Maybe, like, I know you laugh at me, and I used to say to get yourself involved in these things. You'll never know what'll come out of it, you know. And there, look at you, you know. And like Tan, you know, discovering a different job, a different way that she wanted to do things, you know. Tony's after changing it into a completely different job. Doyler's doing her thing. Gemma is down there now with Blake, and our new baby's coming, and you know, it's all about what you want for yourself. But that there's somebody behind you saying to you, do it, go for it,
encouraging you.
Absolutely encouraging you. Do the best that you can, and if that doesn't work, go the other avenue. But to know, I think, for people to know there's somebody behind them, and that'll be there for them. And like what I always say to Ollie is, and I remember saying it to Carter, me pal, I'll always love you no matter what. No matter whatever happens, no matter what comes up, no matter what we've to do, I will always love you. I will always be there for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe some people don't have that.
Yeah.
And they,
unconditional love.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's unconditional love. And you go into relationships with people like what I did that you shouldn't be in. You're in abusive relationships that you shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
You know, but you think that's all you're worth.
Yeah.
And then you're in there and then you say, oh, I can't say now, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
And you try and you try and you try. You know, and you're younger, but there's nobody saying to you, don't put up with that. You know, it's like, oh, you made your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah.
Where if it was one of mine came here and said, I can't stay there anymore, well then stay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Do you know something, ma'am, that I feel about that, what you're saying about if you end up in an abusive relationship, which I know you've experienced and I've experienced, what I find about that is people can tell you all day long, that's, you know, you're too good for that. It's not right for you. And if you're lucky enough, you have people saying those things to you, you know. But if you don't love yourself, you can't take that in.
Yeah.
You know, so like I know, like in times when I've been in difficult relationships that you have really not wanted me to be in, and you're saying to me, you're too good for this, and you shouldn't be tolerating this, and this, think about Brooke, and what about this, and what about that, and I didn't feel like that I didn't love myself, you know.
Yeah.
I just didn't love myself, so I didn't. When you love yourself, you set a standard. So anyone that comes in, if they're below that standard, you won't accept it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Kev's going to kill me, but like, I want to be absolutely adored now because I absolutely adore myself. Yeah. I couldn't love myself anymore if I tried.
I know. I think I overdid it with the whole confidence booster.
I absolutely love myself. So now sometimes I say to Kev, have you something you want to say to me? And he knows that I want him to sing me a song. Who's that wonderful girl? Could she be any cuter? And he knows, and that's what I want. But I deserve that. I am Absolutely. A queen, you know. But at the time I didn't feel like that about myself. So it wouldn't matter how many times you tell me, Molly, look in the mirror, you're gorgeous, you're this, you don't need to put up with this shy off him, and think about this and think about Brooke and whatever. I was just coming, and I think as women, when we don't love ourselves, we're coming from this scarcity mindset. You're trying to fill that hole, like you want love, and he's giving you some description of it, and you don't really think that you're going to do any better because you don't feel good about yourself, so you make all the excuses in the world and you tolerate it, you know. So what I find is, instead now, when if I have friends that I can see are in a difficult position, or I can see that they have a partner that is just nowhere near good enough for them, absolute models and competent women, like, we're fucking unreal, and the patriarchal society that we live in tells us all the time that we're not, but we are, you know. They want us to not feel that way. So what I do now, instead of saying to girls and my friends and whatever, oh, you don't need to put up with that, and he's this and he's that, I don't even address them, because the men aren't the problem. The problem is that we don't love ourselves. So I just big them up to their last. When they're talking to me about their boyfriend has done this or that, whatever, I'm just like, oh my God, and that must have made you feel X, Y, and Z. And they'd say, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I can imagine. And I just validate their feelings. And then in every other circumstance I can possibly see them in, I big them up. I tell them how, because it's it's not, I'm not telling them to falsely boost them up in some way. I'm telling them the truth. At any opportunity, we need to big up our gals so that they feel that about themselves. They take in those messages, and then they'll make better relationship choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Telling them about the man, you're pissing against the wind. If they've chosen a bad man, it's because they're not loving themselves, or they don't love themselves, or they're not aware that loving yourself is necessary, you know.
Yeah, but the part I'm saying, Molly, as a parent, is that you say to the kids, no matter what happens, No matter if you stay with him, you don't stay with him, whatever you're going to do, I'll still love you. I'll always be here for you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's very important.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when kids, we all make mistakes, but sometimes when they make mistakes or they do something wrong, they think, oh, you know, and if you're going to be, I fucking knew you, that was going to happen, I told you that was going to, you know, people don't need that. You need to be told, it's okay, we're going to move on from this. And they might go back to the same fella, you know, and keep going back, but you need to hear, I love you, I'm here for you, I'll always be here for you, I'll always love you. And then when people feel that they have that unconditional love, it gives them a strength in themselves. Say, well, you know, somebody has me back. But what I'm talking about is seeing people, young girls with a couple of kids and going around, and you know by them God loved them, they're lost.
Yeah.
And you just say, you know, what happened with them?
Yeah.
You know. So
yeah,
that's just the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, 100%. The last question that's here is: are you overstimulated? Now, I don't even know. I don't know what this answer will be for you. But in terms of like the way the world has gone, you know, like years ago, there wasn't phones, there wasn't billboards, there wasn't, you know, if you go around Dublin city centre now, there's everything is happening all at once, you know. But when you're on your phone, you could be on your phone in your bedroom and everything is happening all at once because you're being bombarded by, first of all, the compulsion to be on the phone, you know. There's people who are paid millions and billions and trillions to design these apps and technology that will to make you addicted so that you will use it more, which means they'll be able to generate more money by ads and by you purchasing apps and using social media and whatever. So I think that's one of the huge blocks to healing at the moment in our society is being overstimulated. I think the way that we've designed the working week is insane. I just don't know, like the working week, this 5 days working to have 2 days rest. I think that's nuts. The more that I've healed myself and realised how much more downtime our body actually needs, 2 days is not enough for you to work so hard all week and only have 2 days rest is insane, you know. And obviously it's on the news that there's different companies and in different countries trialing a 4-day week because this whole 5-day 2-day thing is nonsense. And then when you combine the 5-day working week with phones and the telly and the fact that you're contactable 24/7, you know, like me and Kev talk about the phone all the time, and he says, you better, me and Tan, I had a difficult interaction with Tan a while ago, and I well, I don't even think that's fair to say. I was having some feelings about being on my phone and talking to people a few weeks ago, and so Tan in particular was texting my phone, but I just didn't want to be contacted, so I just left my phone. And Kev said, I said, Tan was texting me there, I'll get back to her now in a couple of days. Like, I just need some space. And he said, well, you better, what did he say to me? You're going to have to text her back. And we were going in for a swim. And I said, I don't have to do anything. I don't believe that just because society has designed phones and people are paid loads of money to design apps, that should dictate anything about me. You know? Yeah, it's there and it's great, but I'll use it when I want to use it, you know? So I didn't always feel like this. I have been overstimulated for a while, and I had a job that was very overstimulating, and I was struggling with anxiety, and I was on anxiety medication. And since I've really delved into all this healing in myself, I'm not on my anxiety medication anymore. I only use my phone when I feel like using it. I take all those steps. So the question is, are you overstimulated, or do you think you have a good handle on the amount of information and input and phone calls and telly and scrolling that you engage in every day?
No, I suppose there would have been a time where I wouldn't be a mad, I don't have loads of apps or anything on my phone. I don't have games on my phone. I use it basically as a phone. like for phone calls. That's what I mean. I don't play on it or watch movies or anything on it. You know, I watch the telly.
You love an old Facebook post, I'll tell you that. If there's an angel card reading going on Facebook, she's there.
I'm all over the angel card readings. But no, and I do tend to at night time now just I'd plug it in up in the room if I'm down watching the telly. And one of the mornings, I love Saturday mornings. I love Saturday being off work. And last Saturday morning I got up and I left my phone in the room and I just came down to the sitting room and made myself a cup of tea. And I just pulled up the blinds and it was lashing. And I just sat there and listened to the rain and drank me tea.
Beautiful.
And I was just like, because you turn it on and you could be 10 minutes, you could be 20 minutes. You'd be like, fuck's sake, I have to go somewhere or do something. But
I think that's so funny that you're saying you could be 10 minutes, you could be 20 minutes, because TikTok is, I'm not on TikTok, but TikTok has been designed in such a way that it's extremely addictive. So the way that they've designed them and the scrolling nature of it and the way there's loads of things. There's loads of psychological little tricks that they that they use to make sure that kids stay on it and just keep flicking on through the videos. But kids are losing like 2 and 3 hours. So you're saying, oh, I could have lost 10 minutes or 20 minutes. These kids are losing 3 hours of their day on TikTok, you know.
No, I love podcasts, as you know. So I'd have podcasts on when I'd be going, like today, Saturday, I was doing me cleaning. So I'd have my podcast on and I'd be listening to my podcasts and going around. So I wouldn't be sitting on my phone. It's like having the radio on. Like this morning, I had the radio on.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. And I know there's loads. And like when I see all them, even when I'm out and you see girls and they're taking pictures of themselves and doing all them stupid faces, I just look and saying, God help them. You know, I see people taking pictures of food or people take pictures of themselves. I just think it's gas. You know. But
that's, do you think that that's a place of coming from a place of judgment? If you have an urge to take a photo of something that you're like, I have to take, this is so nice, I'll take a photo of it. Take the photo. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just, because I'd be like, you have to put up everything. Like some people just share everything.
Yeah.
You know, out for breakfast here, picture of that, out for there, and you're like, they couldn't be that fucking happy all the time. Like, I think I'm like,
they're not.
At this stage of my life, I have to say I'm very happy in my life. Yeah. I'm very happy. I love where I live. I love my job. You know, I'm very happy in my life. So, but I don't feel the need to overshare everything on Facebook. But that's just me. Yeah. So, no, I'd rather read. I love reading.
Yeah. You're really good at reading.
Yeah.
I wish I was better. I used to be so good at reading and I've just gotten too busy. I need to get back to that.
Yeah. No, I love reading and I love being on my own.
Yeah.
No, not all the time, but I do enjoy my own company. I love Saturdays. I'm always here on my own on a Saturday. So
you are very good at spending time with yourself and not by yourself.
Yeah. And years ago I would have been running, fly down, do this, go out, go to shops, do this. Never sit on your own. Yeah. Because when you sit on your own, you have to think.
You have to sit with yourself.
Yeah. And you think about things and then your mind will go, where thank God now I can sit very much with myself. Yeah. And I enjoy being by myself.
With yourself.
With myself.
Yeah.
You know. So no, your question was, am I overstimulated? No, I don't. I choose not to.
Yeah.
I choose not to. I don't watch the news.
No. Oh, that's a really good point, ma'am. Yeah, I don't watch the news either. Yeah. I find that very overstimulating.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a privilege to be able to switch it off. I fully know that, and I send all the love and healing, and Jesus, I hope that whole thing in Gaza and the Ukraine and all ends as soon as fucking possible. But I find that very hard to take all the time, of that. This is what I'm talking about with the messaging, you know? Yeah. Like when I leave the room, say if me and Kev are watching whatever, Married at First Sight or whatever shite we're watching just as a funny thing to have on, and we have the chats and whatever. If I go to the loo, if that goes on ads, or I go to the loo or whatever, I come back, he has Al Jazeera on. Do you know what Al Jazeera? Al Jazeera is just like another news
really?
channel, but it's not like it's like meant to be impartial and it tells the real truth and whatever, but it's just constant images of war and dead people and kids screaming with no arms, and just like it's so much, it's so much, you know, and that I find that very distressing and very overstimulating, because there's nothing I can do about it, you know. And I actually spoke to Keto about this, my best friend Keto. He's really very emotionally intelligent and quite an intelligent man, you know. And I said to him, like, I'm really struggling with, like, Keto has a friend called Jack, and Jack is like just hilarious. It's like really cool mechanic. They actually have a YouTube channel called Cannibal Cars. They're deadly, the pair of them are gas, but Jack is very much tuned into what's going on in Israel, Palestine, Gaza, all that stuff, and he puts up stuff on his Instagram and reminds people to send emails to TDs and send letters to here and go to the marches and all that. And I said to Keto, like, God, Jack is just deadly, like that he does all that. I find that I really feel very guilty that I'm not doing that. And you know, Keto said something that really resonated with me, and he said, do you know, Molly, like, you're starting healing gals, you know, and maybe you're doing your healing in your corner of the world the way you can. And maybe Jack has capacity to do the bits that he can, you know, and if everyone is just doing what they can, that's good enough, you know. And I felt, I am. I'm doing what I can. I'm not doing nothing, you know. Maybe my contribution to the world is to help heal women in our little corner of Ireland, you know.
Exactly.
And if everyone is doing what they can, and Jack has the space and the capacity to do what he's doing, and I'm thrilled that he is, and I'm thrilled that there are people like Jack, because I don't have the capacity for that at the moment. I have the capacity for what I'm doing and raising my young one and buying a house and doing the bits that I'm trying to do, you know. So I just thought that was really important. So if anybody else is feeling like really powerless and seeing all this imagery of kids and the war and just all of that distressing imagery, maybe they'll take that little message and that'll give them some sort of peace as well with it, you know.
Absolutely.
So before we go, we're coming up to time now. Before we go, the last thing that I want to ask you is, have you got a message for little Gracie?
Yeah, I would love to tell her, and I do tell her, you were enough. You were absolutely gorgeous. You were the best kid. You didn't get a chance to do all that you wanted to do, but you're doing it now. And I love you.
Angel, oh, you're so good. Well done, man. Okay, will you let me just say goodbye to everybody? That's it from us on Healing Gals today. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Send us a message. If you wanted to send us in any thoughts on the conversation with my mum today or any other episode, you can send us an email on healinggalspodcast@gmail.com or at healinggals on Instagram. So have a great week, everybody, and remember, you're good enough exactly as you are.